Good evening, everyone. It's a known fact that rape and sexual assault are two of the most underreported crimes in our society, where about 15 out of 16 rapists sometimes walk free. Which brings us to tonight's topic. The hashtag #MeToo movement, according to an article published by Time, it's a movement that focuses specifically on sexual violence. But it's more than just a hashtag, right? According to Tarana Burke, it's the start of a larger conversation and a space for community healing. I mean, when you think about it, it's been around for years. And it gives voices to those who before were too scared to speak up, right? For fear of being shamed or being left all alone and scared. The goal of the movement, though, is to disrupt any and all systems that allow sexual violence to flourish, which all sounds great. But then again, it's also at the base of many controversies, right? Some people believe that women weaponize it, right? They use it to attack innocent men, and so much more. But tonight, our panelists will be sharing with us their opinions, right? They share their experiences with us, and they'll be answering your questions, more importantly. My name is Ted, and once again, I want to welcome you all to another episode of Drop Mic. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Don't forget to share the feed with your friends and family, right? Even if they're not on Facebook, remember the show is also being broadcasted live on YouTube right now. So you can go on YouTube, find PDF Ministry, and you can share the link with your friends that are not on Facebook. Without any further delay, we'll have the panelists introduce themselves, right? Tell us where they're from, I'll start with you, Carl. I think you're still on mute, Carl. We're not getting any sound from you.
I apologize about that, everyone. So, as I was saying, my name is Carl Rodney. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I work for a nonprofit in the city, and I want to take this time to thank the Drop Mic team for inviting me again, one more time, and I'm looking forward to a great talk.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Carl. Welcome back. And we also have another familiar face. Welcome back. I'm Rose. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I think you're also on mute, Rose. Everybody on mute tonight.
Yeah.
I'm still not getting any sound from Rose. Guess we'll look into that GBC. Let's go to Patricia.
Hi, I'm Patricia. Thank you, Drop Mike, for having me tonight. I am a social worker, and I co-founded the ministry Save Soul. We serve the mental health of the Afro Caribbean community. I also work as a life support specialist at Columbia University, and I'm happy to be here tonight to discuss a topic that I'm very passionate about.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you and welcome to the show. Welcome to the panel tonight. Next, we have Kate.
All right. My name is Kate. I just recently graduated from UNT. I live in Texas, I guess closer to Dallas, you could say. I wouldn't say Dallas. And I'm really glad to be here for, again, like she said as well, a cause that's very close to my heart.
All right. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kate. And let's try Rose one more time. I don't know if we can get any sound from Rose. Oh, not yet. Okay. Well, we'll try to connect with Rose again, guys. In the meantime, let's get right to it, guys. So, Me Too movement, good or bad? Carl, what do you think?
I That's a very loaded question, but to answer it, I
Mm-hmm.
gotta say that I believe that is a movement that started with very good intentions because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes women are victimized, they are marginalized, and they are treated badly, and
Yeah.
it's not something like, that we need to tolerate as a society. And I do believe
Mm-hmm.
that this movement um, literally tries to make ways for this to not be a problem in our society. However, I do
Okay.
believe that it has been shifted from its original goal, and I do believe that by shifting that goal, they've caused more harm to women than good. And I do
Mm-hmm.
believe that it makes the cause lose its validity. And I do believe whenever something like that happens, it's, with any movement, it's cause for alarm, so people can go ahead and sort of reshift it to what it needs to be.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Carl. What about you,
Mhm.
Patricia?
I do think that it started with great intention. I would say that too. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it still serves a good purpose because it creates a platform for women who were silenced. Now they can
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable coming and then getting support and share their stories. And just like any other movement, I do believe that there always be people with their own agenda, not
Yeah.
necessarily a part of the movement, not necessarily thinking about the big picture, who are just pursuing their own agenda, and that has created some bad reputation for the movement. I do think that it still can be saved, although I think it is shifting a little bit, but it still serves a great purpose.
Okay. Okay. What about you, Kate? What do you think?
I definitely would say that when it comes to the Me Too movement, I think it's definitely more beneficial than it is. I guess I know what the opposite of that word is, but I definitely think that due to it, a lot more women have definitely spoken up, and I think it gives a lot
Mm-hmm.
more confidence and a lot more comfort to women that probably wouldn't have said anything before, and also men, because I do truly believe that men is something that is often overlooked when it comes to sexual assault and
Mm.
rape. So
Yeah.
I definitely think it's more beneficial than it would be detrimental. That's what I was looking for.
Okay. So when you say men are overlooked, why would you say that is though? Why do you think
I
that's the
wouldn't say
case?
overlooked. I guess I wouldn't say overlooked. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the right word, but I think a lot of people tend to think when they hear sexual assault, when they hear rape, they automatically think it only happens to women. But there are
Mm-hmm.
actually cases, where it does happen to men. I mean, obviously, I definitely think women speak up more about it than men do, but
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely something that is happening right now as well. Like, it's not just women. There are some men that have spoken up as well about
Yeah.
things, sexual assault that has happened to them.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And I believe Rose is back. Welcome back, Rose. Can you hear
Hi.
me now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome back.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can jump right in.
Okay, my name is Rose. I live in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm a mental
Mm-hmm.
health counselor to adults with mental health challenges such as bipolar, major depression, and schizophrenic. And just like
Okay.
everyone say, with the Me Too movement, it's definitely considered controversial at the very least. And then you will definitely have people who either love it or going to be against it. But at the end of the day, I feel like someone reality doesn't change because you don't want to do anything about it, or you
Mm-hmm.
kind of sort of want it to be the way that you want it to be. And the movement, especially the core purpose of the movement, is definitely noble. It has created an environment for people to voice out their harassment, sexual assault experience, whereas previously they may not been a forum for the victim to share their experience. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that many of them will actually reach out to family member or close friends who will basically kind of advise them on what is the next step for them to take. And
Yeah.
I definitely feel that social media also induce courage among people that are actually out there and listening and basically giving them a voice. It's definitely not a perfect movement, just like any other movement, and I'm
Yeah.
definitely looking forward to kind of see some of the changes and some of the ways that we could make victims or to be able to come out and report their experience as well as sharing their experience with others as part of prevention.
Okay. So I know you've mentioned social media, right? And we've seen it happen many times where someone
Mm-hmm.
comes out on social media. Let's say they either go on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and they tell people, I've been a victim. Let's say in that
Mm-hmm.
case, a woman, she says, I've been a victim. But then we get mixed reactions from people. Some people will say, she just wants attention, right? She just wants the popularity that comes with accusing somebody of something as atrocious as, raping you.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about that? Because, you say social media has given them the courage, but do you also think that it can also scare some people from actually revealing their story?
Yes, definitely. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's actually one of the reasons why many people are kind of scared for them to to come forward, because they are trying, they're already scared, they traumatized, and whether they have been through years of therapy, that is still, an experience, and it's their experience. And when they want to go out and share that experience with the world, and basically like anybody, with whatever experience that you have, when you want to share it with others, and then you face with judgment, and you will have people that say, okay, maybe you asked for it, okay, maybe it was because of the way that you dress, and the positivity that you will want, or at least I could say, like, the sympathy that you will want from others, when you really do not receive that, then if another person is basically going through the same thing, that's definitely going to tell, kind of make them take a step back and say, okay, so and so went ahead and move forward, and look at all the backlash that they are receiving. And I'm already scared, and I don't even know what to do. So I'm definitely not going forward, because no one will actually believe me, which is why so
Yeah.
many women have suffered for so long.
Okay. Very interesting point, though. What do you think about that, Kate?
Like about the social media aspect, I definitely think that social media often can play a very important role kind of when it comes to bringing awareness to certain situations. I've personally seen that happen. Like, for example, Twitter is definitely probably one of the um, main ways that I've seen information spread. Well, the fastest as well, hashtags, and you can easily
Yeah.
share things with people. So definitely, I would definitely say, like Rose also said, though, there is like a negative side, the people that are always going to have their opinions on, well, maybe, maybe if you didn't dress like this, maybe if you didn't drink so much, or maybe if you didn't, there are so many like negative comments that I feel like social media can put into victims' minds that would make them, maybe doubt their story, or even I've seen some people go so far as, delete it and just want to retract what they said, act like it never happened. So I definitely think social media, when it comes to the Me Too movement, is a double-edged sword. It can be good, but it also can be bad as well.
Okay. So, Carl, I have a question for you. So, according to a study performed by, Match.com, right? So they said 51% of single men have revealed that, this hashtag Me Too movement has affected the way they date, right? Because they said now they're more careful, or they don't want to approach women the way they used to before. So what do you think about that?
Well, I do believe that this is a very touchy subject, in the sense that um, you will always find people that will abuse, like, their position, or anything, like, that is, like, given to them, any authority, like, that they that is given to them. But in the thing that where men are saying that they are afraid of dating, like, women, I can see, like, the logic in it. But where I want, like, this conversation to remain is in the sense of rape. Um, if if you if you have a very loose definition of rape, that is also gonna go ahead and create a conversation that is totally different. So talking to a woman, I don't believe that this is what the men are afraid of. I do believe is what women will say when they're talking to them, or when they're courting them, or what might happen if they, let's say, go out on a to for a night of drinking, and both parties, like, are consenting adults, and both people go back home, and something happens, and the next morning, a woman wakes up and then says, well, I've been raped because I wasn't aware of what was going on. Well, I'm sorry to say it, if you drink and then you take your car and then you go for a ride and you kill someone, you're going to jail. So you are held accountable for your action. That being said, the definition of what rape is something that needs to be addressed. And by that same, like, logic, when men feel that, okay, there's a clear definition as to, okay, what is the definition of, like, raping, which is, like, forcing yourself into someone and then, like, performing a sexual act. I do believe that this 51%, like, number should go down. But I can see both ways of, like, how that conversation can go. I can understand it, but I do believe that the main focus is on the definition of what harassment is, of what rape is.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, that is those are very loose terms that are being, like, thrown around, because if you look at someone the wrong way, that is considered, like, harassment. That is, like, considered in some
Mm-hmm.
instances rape. And, like, some courts will actually go ahead and proceed and like, going about it as if it is rape. So I totally see where that the study is going. However, I do not want to go ahead and wait too much on it, for the simple fact that I do believe, like, the definition of what causes in that study is not being addressed, which is, like, the what is, like, rape, and what defines it, and the perimeters around it.
Very interesting point, Carl. When you mentioned accountability, right?
Hmm.
You said if you go out there and you're driving while under the influence, right? You're drunk and you're driving,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
will be held accountable, and that's true if you kill somebody.
Yes. Yes.
However, if you're drunk and you wake up the next morning in bed with a guy, right? You're not held accountable.
Well,
So
that
why do
seems to
you?
be, like, the well, I do
Go
believe,
ahead.
like, that has to do with, like, our political climate, like, and I don't
Yeah.
mean to go ahead and, like, pick sides or anything, but I feel like, there are some that do believe that you know taking, like, away responsibility from women actually, like,
Mm-hmm.
is helping them. And I do believe, like, that it, like, beneficial to women at all. And if you look at the case of Brett Kavanaugh, like, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. That
Mm-hmm.
was a
Mm-hmm.
man who's worked his whole life, his, like, worked really hard, to get wherever he is right now. And when Christy Blasey Ford, I believe that is the name of his accuser, went into the Senate, and there was a hearing. She didn't have any concrete evidence or any proof of exactly what had happened, or she didn't have any evidence. There was no due
Mm-hmm.
process, but there was a lot of people that were screaming, believe women. If she says it, it must be true, and you do
Mm-hmm.
not question it. And if she says it's happened, so it has to be happened, it must have happened. And I do believe, like, we're
Mm-hmm.
walking a very, very dangerous line, because once you start believing with a due process, what you end up doing is actually, hurting people in the long run. You're not helping anyone. So I don't know if that, like, answers any question. I tend to ramble, so
Okay. Okay.
May I
I
add to
mean,
that?
so Patricia.
yeah.
Sure. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to clarify that yes, it is a dangerous line.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, when people are saying that we must believe women, and I can see how that can come out doubtful. But at the same time, this is also the reason why other people don't report these kind of things, because you don't always have
Mm-hmm.
proof of what happened. You don't always have concrete evidence of what happened. For people who are familiar with rape and sexual assault, when it happens, they might go out the next day and get a rape kit, but not every woman even
Mm-hmm.
understands what happened to them. So this is why we're seeing a lot
Mm.
of cases where, years after, people are coming out saying, oh my God, this was rape, so this happened to me. So there are some truth to what is being said. But I agree that in some cases the line might be blurry, and this is to the disadvantage of people who are really survivors and victims. But also,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we are in any position to determine if a woman is telling the truth or if she's not, if you're not at the place with her. And this is where I think we have to make more effort to educate women. When something happens to you and you don't exactly understand it, educate yourself on the
Mm-hmm.
term. What is assault? What is rape? And know what to do if something like that happened to you. That way you have the evidence that the society is asking for. But we have to be clear that there's not always evidence every time it happens.
Okay. I mean, I do have a follow-up question to what you just said, though, because when you look at the justice system, right, any case you bring forth, to a judge, they will need evidence, right, and they treat most criminal cases in the same manner, right? So if you accuse somebody of rape, right, and you show up to court, no evidence, which, and based on what you said, is very valid, right? Because a lot of instances, there are no evidence, right? So I'm trying to understand the balance, right? Do you think it's fair to make a decision when no evidence were presented?
Yeah. Legally, I don't think it's fair to make decision to condemn or convict someone when there is no
Mm-hmm.
evidence, because you don't know whether
Yeah.
it's the truth or not. But I think we should make more effort on focusing on healing instead of judging the woman, because what is happening is that
Mm-hmm.
once they present the case that there is no evidence, then everybody's like, oh, she's a liar. And this is the kind of judgment
Mm-hmm.
that keeps people in silence forever, because maybe there's not evidence, but okay, so what can we do for her healing? How can she move on?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there should be a focus where the justice system might not be able to convict the person, but at least focus on getting that person who's the survivor some kind of help to move on with
Mm-hmm.
her life if she's not going to get social justice.
Okay, okay. So along the same lines of, helping the victim, I have a question for the panel. Because a lot of times, we have what we call trial by media or trial in the court of public opinion. Right? Let's say, for instance, someone is accused of rape. Right? And then it blows up. It's all over the news. Everybody's talking about it. You're labeled a rapist now. Right? Then later on, you come to find out that it didn't happen. Right? So what do we do for those people who were defamed, right? They're now living with the stigma of being a rapist, right? I know we've mentioned, we need to develop programs to help the victims. So how do we help the wrongly accused? I'll start with you, Rose,
Well,
and then
Ted.
Kate.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Rose.
Um,
Oh, before I answer the question, I just wanted to say something on what Carl had said earlier. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I believe that recognizing that sexual violence, I think it will never end until men become part of the part of the solution. And as
Well,
Okay.
far
I
as
do
like
believe that
when no, I
we
understand
condemn
that.
rapists, and we condemn that in Western societies we do not. The men are very involved, and we punish rapists. We don't love them, and personally I believe they all should be castrated. So I'm very part of the solution. So when it's said that, like, men have to be involved, I do believe we have very, very serious, like, laws against, like, people that are rapists. And as a matter of fact, you can see where it's going. If you go to a bar, you get drunk, you go home, you commit, like, sexual act with someone that is consensual. It doesn't matter what you say the next day, the man is guilty. So I do believe that, we have very strict rules and laws, like, against raping. And I do believe, like, that men are very involved, because well, I don't want to go ahead and switch topics, but if you look at like our courts, you look at like everything, like how the laws are made, they practically men, like making them. So I do believe that they are very involved. I just had to say that.
No, it's okay. And I think, well, basically what I wanted to kind of point out is that I understand you say, okay, they got drunk, they went out, but now there's a gray area. You do not know what happened when they get into the bedroom. No means no.
Hmm.
And even if the person said
Hmm.
yes, and afterwards they say no, it means no. And that's something that you should automatically just stop, immediately. So I understand that part. And there are, women who have lied and accused someone of, raping them. Then at the end, it found out that it was a lie, maybe because they were ashamed when they woke up. They were like, oh, me, being with this person. Then, they go and lie about it. But at the same time, there's
Yeah.
still a gray area into that because we definitely do not know what happened when they actually got into the bedroom.
That is very true. And I do believe like there should be a conversation going on into like know whom you're going out with, and you shouldn't be going out with people that you don't feel fully protected with. And at least you should try. At least you should try. You won't ever know everything that there is to know about someone. However, I do believe that you should try to know exactly who you going out with. And I do believe that if a man, like you were to say no to him before prior sexual act, and he were to go ahead and continue like against your will, that is the definition of rape. And that is something that should be, that is serious, and that is something that should be like he should go to jail and throw away the keys, like I could care less about him. However, I do believe like when you say that we don't know what happened, I do believe like that we need to put some of that responsibility on women, because I do believe that you won't know everyone like that you out with. You won't. That's totally impossible. You won't know like the next person you're gonna meet, their reaction, who they are. I do believe that you like the talk about know who you with, whom you go ahead and you let into your life. That is something that I feel like that is neglected. That is something that is not talked about nowadays. Women, as you can see, there are slut walks, sexual independence. They tell you to go ahead and sleep with whomever you want, however you want, whenever you want. So I do believe that mindset, going into like the world, navigating the world through this mindset, through those, I do believe like it can be very dangerous. And this is why I'm very conservative, into the sense that know who you with, or at least try to know who you with.
And I
Let
want to
me
say something
clarify
to that.
also. Oh, sorry.
Um,
I
no,
want
no,
to
go
I
ahead.
want to hear from
Go ahead.
I
Go ahead.
want
I
to
think
from
I
Let me
Kate,
just
just
guys.
clarify.
don't.
Oh, okay,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Rose, go ahead.
Okay, I think what I was gonna say to Carl is that I think when he said like, okay, know the person that you are with, when you look at statistic, most men or women who are sexually assaulted, harassment or rape, it's usually by someone that they are
That they
comfortable,
know.
and there's
Yeah.
someone that they know, and they use that moment of vulnerability and then took that advantage of them. That's all I wanted to
And
say. But go ahead. Go
and
ahead,
and is
Patricia.
are we talking?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Patricia, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's
Let's
what I
hear
was
from
going to
Kate, guys,
say.
and
In
then
most
Patricia.
cases, it's not because you don't know the person.
So
So go
What?
ahead, Kate. Where are you
so
from?
Oh, no, I just wanted to actually agree with what Rose said, and that, yeah, usually, like, you can go out, as I'm seeing the comments on the bottom, yeah, most of the time it is usually someone that you know. Honestly, I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
even, I guess in that aspect, let's think, like, if it's the concept of, oh, don't hang out with people, that you don't fully trust. Well, what about, people that are kids, like 5, 6 years old, and it's a family member, and you can't exactly not hang around them because we're never taught not to trust them because they're a brother or they're an uncle or they're, I mean, honestly, as sick as it can be, like sometimes it's a parent or a step parent or something. So it's just like those
Mm-hmm.
rules kind of like really are very, I guess, subjective, and it depends. I can't even say it depends on the situation. It really is just, I feel like that's just not something that I would personally say to like anybody. Just be like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, make sure you hang around people you trust. Like, no, because it could really be anybody. It could be in the house. It could be best friend. It could be someone you never thought was gonna do it. So it just goes to show that it could really happen from any aspect in your life. And I think that's just
And
I wouldn't say incorrect, but and I wouldn't say insensitive. I don't know exactly what the word is for the statement.
and we're still talking about like rape in the sense of the sexual act of rape, not like that any other forms, like that's what we're still talking about. Like I'm just trying to see if we're on the same page, because when you say like
Yeah.
people that are like that you've known like for a long time, and then like you like you hang out with them, and then like it just happens, we talking about that form of rape, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
And
I
they
was
all
just wanting
form.
to make sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
they
all
all form.
four.
So this is why I wanted to go. What are those forms? Because like and this is why what I mentioned like prior, like entering like that conversation was, what is rape? What is defined? What are we gonna say? What are the perimeters of like what rape is? Is rape like glancing at someone? Is rape like making a comment? Is rape like making someone feeling uncomfortable?
No.
Are we talking about rape like in the simple fact that like having like coitus
Okay,
Yes.
so rape
or
is
forced
okay. So
coitus?
rape is this, a forced sexual act. That would be that's
Hmm.
rape. And there is also harassment, when someone keeps forcing you, making advance, and then you tell them no repeatedly, and then they continue to do that. There is sexual assault. Sexual assault is when someone sexually harass you, like touch part of your body, but they did not exactly make penetration. There is also molestation, where the
Okay.
children is being touched, showing different kind of pornographic material, and they're not at age to understand or consent about these things. All of these things, though, they
Hmm.
fall into the same category, because it doesn't matter if I'm out with a guy, and then I tell you that, okay, I don't feel comfortable with the way that this making out or whatever is going on, and then you continue, even if you did not force me. The fact that you keep going, oh, like you keep refusing to listen to what I'm saying to you, this is also
Why
considered an
not just go
assault.
away? Why not just
It's
walk
not
away?
always, you cannot, oh, it's not
It's not
always
It's
the
always.
case. In
No,
some
you did
cases, you can
mention
walk
that you
away.
are out with a guy. You did mention that you're out with a guy. So I'm assuming like it is in a room. That is, you have like free will to just walk away. You know what? You're a fucking jerk. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to curse.
Hmm.
But you are a effing jerk. And I do not want this to keep going. And then you just go about your day. So
in
if
in
I do believe if you. Mhm.
in some instances, women do walk away, and a lot of women have saved themselves from this kind of situation by walking away. But if you find someone, and this is where again we're coming back with the statistic, like women who have been abused before, sometimes they feel obligated to move along with what is happening, but that does not give the person a permission to continue the act. Like
Then
people who
that is a
have been
problem with
abused.
education. I
Exactly.
So
do
I have a
think
But
question for you,
still,
that's
Carl.
an education.
that does not give the
Definitely.
person
So here,
permission. Yes,
here,
I
here,
can walk away, but I did not go away. But I did
So
not walk away.
so so,
But what you did was
so
still wrong.
here's what I have to say.
here's
Someday
a
I hope to
scenario,
have a
Carl. Here's a
daughter.
scenario, Carl.
Yeah, go ahead.
1 second, Carl. So
Hmm.
let's say, for instance, right, a lady goes out with a guy,
Hmm.
right, but they're driving, because there are instances
Hmm.
where they're driving on the highway, right,
Hmm.
and the guy's reaching over to touch the young lady. So
Hmm.
in a case like that, she can't just open the door and jump out the car,
No,
right?
she
So what would
shouldn't
you
do
say
that. That's
for
very
them to?
ladies don't jump out of cars like on the highway. That's terrible.
So
Don't do
you
that.
know,
Uh-huh.
it goes with the point where it's not always easy for them to walk away,
Hmm.
right?
So
So,
what
but
you
someone,
just picked right now, Ted, I'm sorry, but what you just picked right now
go
was
ahead.
like the what I call like the perfect scenario, in the sense that the cars on the highway is going like 80 miles per hour, or and then like you're in the car, so yeah, there's no way out. So I'm talking about like possible, in the sense that you at a bar, the guy goes and like you does a song going on or whatever, and then he grabs you, a certain way that you do not welcome. You do not feel like that is something that should be happening the way it happened. And in
Mm-hmm.
those instances, I do believe like you should just wake up, politely like thank the gentleman or like the pig because he did act like in such manner, and then just walk away. You don't have to whenever you can. This is like when you should. And as Patricia mentioned, and she did touch like a very very important point. We do need, as a society, we need to go ahead and teach women to go ahead and speak out like in the sense that like when something happens to you, do not wait and do not just feel like, oh well, what is it that's going to happen to me. Go ahead, like and make it known. Call around you the people that are around you. If they're a witness, get them involved. Tell them, hey, this like sob, like just go went and then like grabbed me, and like I did not welcome this. Now you have like witnesses, and if that has to go like to a courtroom, or if it has to go anywhere that it needs to be going, now you have the evidence and you have witnesses to go ahead and back up your claims. But when you stay quiet and something happens and you're just dealing with it, one, I do believe that mentally it puts a toll on you. And second of
Mm-hmm.
all, I do believe like you're just lowering your chances of ever getting justice, and which often is the justice that you deserve. And by doing that, you're also like doing a disservice to other women, because what's gonna happen is this piece of crap is still gonna be out there doing the exact same thing that is done to you. And that's why I stand around this.
Let me
I don't
tell
know if
you,
any of the ladies have an element of answer. Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Before
yeah,
I
let
go
me
to the
tell
next
you
question. Go ahead.
something personal. So the first time, the first time that I was sexually assaulted, I actually told somebody the next day, and I actually told the person told somebody, and I was called name around my whole neighborhood for it. So it's not, even though I do say that we have to educate. So now I know better. I tell women that you have to find a person that you trust to speak to that person, that trusted person, and then find healing.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we tell women to speak out, there is a type of environment that you need to speak out to, because you might think that going out and tell the whole world is going to help solve your problem, but sometimes this
It does.
this turns into a negative experience for you, and you go through years. I didn't get social justice. These things don't happen in the Afro-Caribbean community. So, and there is that other part to where we were talking about social media. And this is why I think, for me personally, I think social media is mostly negative for women who are coming out for the
Hmm.
first time, because I feel like
Hmm.
it's more of a tool to use for awareness. But if a woman is coming out for the first time, you're a survivor, I don't think social media is the right place for you to tell everybody, this is what happens to me. And then you have all of these comments, people who are ignorant, judging you and telling you all of these things, and you have not even started your own healing process. So it
And
took
I
like
do
a
agree with you.
decade. Yeah, it took a decade
Um,
before through my healing process. Now I can speak about it clearly without, getting enraged or wanting to kill somebody about it. But it's a process, and
and
women do go decades without telling anybody about it. But that does not mean
uh,
it's a lie.
Ted, I want to
Patricia,
say something.
I want
Go
to
ahead,
say,
Carl.
oh, go ahead, go ahead. No, no, go ahead,
No, no,
Rose.
no.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I'll go after you. It's okay. I'll go after you.
So, okay. So, Rose, I want to say something. I'm very sorry this happened, and I do hope, like, this guy dies a horrible death. I do hope, like, that he screams before he dies. I hope, like, I do hope so. But I have to go ahead and say to you, there are multiple, like plenty and plenty of like organizations, like that like are free, anonymous, they are confidential, and they are focused around helping women that have been victimized, that have been like harassed, that have been like sexually like brutalized like in any forms. So I do believe like when you say that in the Caribbean, like especially in the Caribbean like community, like that those things do not exist, and I do believe like, you are to some extent like that they do not exist and they need to exist, and they need to go ahead and like people need to go ahead and like work towards them and create spaces for women that have been victimized. However, what I can go ahead and say is those places exist, and in some instances I do they are technically pushed down your throat, like so you can go ahead and like go down and like address them. You happen to be like a victim like of like any type of like violence that is sexual by nature. That's
Okay. Go ahead,
Okay.
Rose.
Good. Okay. So basically, with everything that caused it, what I want to say is that when someone, as Patricia might have experienced, when someone goes through something traumatic like that, you no longer trust yourself or even others. And you might even get to a point where you feel like you don't have any safe place anymore for you, right? So you are questioning your judgment, your self-worth, and even your sanity. And then for the most part, is society definitely places a blame on you for what happened, and you internalizing, trying to figure out, okay, am I dirty? Some people, I know for some of the clients that I work with, they basically say that they are damaged good. And so, and they usually have trouble in their relationship because they feel dangerous, intimacy. And on top of that, it's not just the like the experience alone. Most, I will say, like, survivors, they are struggling with PTSD. And PTSD is not something that people just go forward and say, okay. And like you were saying, like, with all of the social services, people usually wait a long time for them to actually go ahead, because there are some of those programs, if you're not ready, even a therapist cannot tell you when you are ready. You have to be the one that know that you are ready for you to go through the process. Because if you're not ready, and you either family members are telling you, hey, I think maybe you should do it, and then you're not into that safe space for yourself, it's not going to be beneficial. It could actually, damage you even worse, because you're not, that space of, in your mind, cognitively, you're not there yet, you know? So,
okay.
which is why the healing process definitely very painful. And not everyone is capable for them to actually go through that process yet. Okay?
All right.
So,
I have something
basic,
to, yeah.
I know, and it's very easy for everyone to say, look, why didn't you tell someone? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And I think basically where we could, I guess all of us
I'm
agree, is
actually
that
gonna go a step
it's
further. I think it's very
go ahead.
stupid not to go ahead and do that. Because what you're saying is like, to wait and go when you feel ready. And like, in some instances you do say like, that helps you like, heal. Like, it helps you with the healing process. Now I gotta say something to you. What is the alternative? Like, if you wait, then let's say like something happens today, right? Then you wait 6 months, and then you go ahead and then you step forward, and then you go to such organizations that that are responsible to go ahead and like make sure that women get the help that they deserve, right? And now they ask you, well, when did this happen? And then you said, well, 6 months ago. Well, it's 6 months ago, so the iron's already cold. You there's not much that you can really do except like studying that the healing process. Now I'm very interested in like the healing process, because I do believe like someday I hope to have a daughter, and like that's the only way like I know I'm gonna go to jail if something like that happens. But I do believe like as we focusing in like on the healing process, we also have to look at the justice, like side of it. Maybe like you don't have to go ahead and talk to someone. Maybe you can go ahead and text something, or maybe I'm not versed on like on how it should go. And I'm sure like there are people like that are very well equipped and like in the subject, like they're like well versed, and they're like that have like worked years and like the field, that can go ahead and develop like such ways like when something happens, you can go ahead and like be vocal about it, like being being physically there, or like being like emotionally attached that you're making, and without it like being something that is like blatantly like publicized, and and the reason why I'm saying that, that's because I am tired of like one, women going and then saying, well, it happened, and then when they ask, well, can you show any evidence of it happening? Can you what well, I don't know, I was scared, and I didn't know how to feel. Well, that's great. I understand. I do understand. I wholeheartedly understand like where that's coming from. However, that does not like help anyone's case. It does not, because like what's gonna happen? Anyone's just gonna go ahead and say, well, no evidence, no conviction, and then the harasser like just walks away free.
Okay.
Okay,
I
so
wanna
this is
I
what we were
wanna
talking
go ahead.
about men being part of the solution, Carl. And
Yes.
I hope that you can get this tonight, because I want you to get this tonight.
Please.
Okay, so men being part of the solution is also being part of not judging, not being supportive. The solution is not only a legal perspective. What kind of evidence that you're going to have years later about somebody uh, um, um, being sexually violent to you? Explain to me, like it's like, am I should I program myself to start taking picture when the person start assaulting me, or go get a rape kit the next day, or record the action? Because in some instance you are in a relationship with that person and you do not have the kind of time to store evidence. Yes, you may go the next day and then you tell somebody, but in some instance there are people who are in relationship and they're isolated. They do not have the kind of environment where they can go the next day and tell someone, and that person is going to be a witness. But I do agree that in a lot of cases, some of the accusations are not truth, but I cannot choose to decide if a woman is telling the truth or not. And I do believe that it exists that women try to destroy people's reputation. Even before the whole Me Too movement started, we've had those cases of people falsely accusing other people. But I think part of supporting survivor start with men like you choosing to support instead of trying to investigate. Why didn't you get evidence? Why didn't you? What do you want us to do? What can we do about it now? It's like, what kind of evidence are we talking about? Because we are talking about sexual crimes. What kind of evidence
Hmm.
am I going to show you 6 months later to convince you that somebody assaulted me?
Well, this is exactly what I mentioned to you, that it shouldn't be 6 months later, and I do believe that, and I know people that have been like sexually harassed, sexually like like abused, and I can tell you that it's not a pretty thing to deal with. It's not. It changes you. It changes everything about your whole persona. However, I'm more like I'm on the side of, okay, so something happens. Okay, um, what can we do so it doesn't happen in the future? And after we can go ahead and fix how it like we can solve the problem so it doesn't happen, or so it like the problem can be like so it can be less of a problem in the future, then we can go ahead and focus on like in healing, like, because, and the reason why I'm saying that, that's because if you go to war, or if you go like if you're a doctor, or any profession that requires you to go ahead and deal with trauma, what they teach you is you triage people. So what's going on, if someone comes in with like a stab wound like in their hand, you don't go ahead and treat that. You go ahead and you treat the the chest, the gunshot wounds. That's what you go at first, because that is something that is more problematic at the moment. And I do believe like and this is like in the same light that I'm seeing like this whole topic. So something happens. I
Mm-mm.
do believe, yes,
Mm-mm.
yes, it is
Ron,
something
you
that
are
is
No.
seeing
that
it
is
wrong.
terrible.
No,
You are,
it's
Let me
Ron, you
not.
are seeing it wrong,
let me
because you
interrupt
So
for a
are
so
second, guys. Let me
you
interrupt
are
for a
taking
second.
an emotional issue and making it logical. It's
Yes,
not logical.
it's
It's
not.
emotional.
It's
It's a
not like
sexual
that at all.
trauma. You don't triage.
it, it
You
So
don't
is
know
it is very
when you can
logical.
talk
It
now.
is
so
very
No.
logical
let me
because I do
interrupt,
believe
guys.
there is a science to it.
No.
There's a
Let me
science that
interrupt,
that can
guys.
be
We're
broken
talking
down in
about
it.
human feelings.
Ted, I want to say something, and then you could move on.
Um, one
Okay.
second, because Kate, Kate, you haven't said anything this whole section. I don't know if you have any answer you would like to bring forward before I move to the
Oh,
next question, because I want everybody to participate. You know.
I do have a lot to say. I
Mhm.
think right. Well, I'm trying to think of where to start. That was a lot. Um, okay, I'm trying to think. Y'all were talking about because I'm looking at the comments on Facebook. Someone said something. Oh, just kind of about what Carl had said about, why didn't, why don't people say something? Why do people wait
Mm-hmm.
6 months? It's different for everybody. Some people might go and tell their best friend the next day. Some people might not tell anybody, honestly, ever. It's all just,
Mm-hmm.
how do I word that? I guess it's different coping mechanisms for everybody. It's just how
Yeah.
people handle trauma and handle situations such as that differently. And I guess, like I had kind of mentioned earlier about how, men don't usually speak out about sexual assault, molestation, about things like that. So, I mean, for women, it's already hard enough because we speak out on that. There's already people immediately, whether it's on social media for awareness, whether it's, it just happens to come out to people, there's already immediately people that are skeptical about it. They're going to be like, okay, well, what were you doing? Were you flirting with them the night? There's different reasons. And I mean, I think that's a big part of the reason why a lot of women don't say
Mhm.
something right when it happens is because they,
True.
like, I know personally, there's a feeling of shame. There's a feeling of, like they point the finger at themselves when honestly that's not something you can blame yourself for doing, for
Mm-hmm.
happening to you. A lot of women think, oh, it was my fault, so let me just not say anything. But I definitely think there's not a time limit on trauma, and there's not a time limit on when you can speak up about things. It's honestly whenever
Yeah.
someone feels ready. And like you said, yeah, why would someone wait 6 months? No one knows. I mean, that's between them and themselves, ultimately.
Well,
So,
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. Like, and when it comes to, like, trauma, again, I'm not well versed on the topic. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist.
Mhm.
I do not know. I do not possess, like, the skills to understand, like, what trauma does to you when you go ahead and you address it too early, or when, like, you like you're not ready to address it, and then, like, you are forced to address it. But what I can tell you is, if you go, and that is something, like, and I want you ladies to go ahead and maybe educate me on the matter. If there isn't any way to go ahead and assess what happened, how can we go ahead and prevent whatever happened that is problematic to occur again in the future? How can we do that? Because are we just focusing on healing women, or are we also focusing on them finding justice? Because I like the finding justice part. Because I mean, I would not want my daughter to be walking around and then, like, knowing, like, that there's a scumbag out there, like, that's ready to go ahead and harass her. I would want that person to be dealt with, and I would also want that woman to be, like, receiving, like, the mental help that she needs.
so I guess when you ask, like, what could we do to solve the problem, do you mean like reducing the amount of rapes and sexual assaults? Because if that's the case, I think ultimately, I mean, that starts with at home. That starts with teaching men or when they're
Mhm.
boys, consent. When a woman says no, you take
Exactly.
that as no and you go. You don't touch anyone inappropriately. It's things that start at home. Those are things that, you can't, obviously, we don't just like know those stuff. That's stuff that
But
honestly comes from your environment. I think that's the only way ultimately that things would be less
my
problems, less
I,
assaults,
I
less.
have I have to say something. I have to say something. I'm sorry, Kate, but um, again, I don't think in the United States, or I don't think, like, anywhere in the Western world. Now, if you want to talk about the Middle East, and if you want to talk about Africa, if you want to talk about, like, in, some other continents, yeah, I can tell you that, like, it is something that is normalized. If you rape a woman, well, like, so be it. However, in the Western world, I do not know anyone that goes and advocates, like, for their little boys to grow up and, like, and normalize rape. I don't think that is something that we look towards, and, like, with any kind of, like, with anything, like, that is, like, encouraged. And I don't think, like, for instance, I grew up in Haiti, right? I grew up in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. My mother raised me, and I've never had a conversation, hey, you know what, do not go ahead and, like, rape women, that's bad. No, it's something that you do know, that is innate, like, that you don't do that, you don't violate people. And I feel like, if you have any common sense, and if you are raised, like, in an environment that was, like, somehow, like, stable, because, like, all environments, like, they're unstable to some extent. However, like, if there was some sense of, like, normalcy, and, like, the environment that which you grew up in, I don't think, like, that is something that is that needs to be addressed. Like, what would that conversation look like? Well,
Okay.
son, don't rape women. Like,
So so
how do you see
I
this
want to
this
say
going? How would you have
The
that
something.
behavior.
conversation with your son? Yeah.
The
I want to
behavior.
say
You don't have to
something.
tell them. You say you don't believe that it's normalized, but it is. If that boy is
It
raised
is.
with a father who is arrogant, who does not respect women, who think women's or inferior, the
Respect
parent
does
doesn't
not
have to
mean
tell
rape.
the boy don't rape women. You just giving a pass
Story
saying
time.
that when you date a woman, you can treat them however you want. It's not a
Now,
conversation that is
now,
going to happen.
now we,
It's
we're
So
not.
you
talking about two
normalize it
different
without
things.
saying, without knowing it, with
all
your
right, guys. All right,
behavior.
guys. So I
Ted,
have
I want to
another
say
We're
question,
something.
guys.
talking
I want to say
about two
something,
different things
and then we
there.
could go.
Yeah, go ahead,
Please.
Rose.
Okay.
I have
This
a,
is what I
so
want you
so this is
to.
what we're gonna do. So we'll go to Rose, and then Patricia, Kate, and then I'll go to the next question. Okay? Go ahead, Rose.
Um, I think what I want for Carl to, at least he told us to educate him, so I'm about to do. At least I'm gonna
Please
try to
do.
do that.
Please do.
Okay. When
Go ahead, Rose.
talking about, like, with the conversation with the education, yes, the education definitely has to start at home. And as far as, like, with the Caribbean, I will definitely say, the Haitian culture, or even at least in the African American culture, you will have a lot of, starting with, like, child trauma, where they will go and tell mom and dad, this uncle did this and that, and guess what they do? They put it under the rug. You will even have their own father that will go and actually, assault them, and then nothing will happen about it. And then let me not even start on the church, but I'm just gonna stop right there. But when you are saying is that, people do not, just say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Usually the person doesn't just sit there and say, oh, this person is gonna be my first victim. It usually doesn't start like that. It starts with microaggression. Okay. Catcalling, basically blaming someone because of the way that they are dressing. And usually
I do
what happened with,
catcall women. Am I a
listen,
rapist?
listen,
I
you
catcall
t-
women. I grew
you
up
a-
catcalling women. As a
you
matter of
asking
fact,
us
I
to
do. I think that is something that needs to be happen more. I
you
don't think,
ask
like,
us to
that is in no
call
sense, like,
you ask us to educate you. I'm just going to educate you how it usually
no, you
started.
did mention catcalling, and I'm just telling
Yes,
you,
i'm
being
i'm getting to,
catcalling, or
I'm getting
Mhm,
to that.
mhm.
So let's just
That
say,
is some
okay,
of the most beautiful
catcalling.
thing you can go ahead and do.
but
Hey,
but
how you
listen,
doing? Do you wanna go? Do you have a
Let her
minute?
finish,
Let's
Carl.
let's
Let her
talk.
finish, Carl.
hi, how you doing? Do you have a minute? That's not catcalling. That's
Yeah,
starting a conversation with
yeah.
someone politely. So basically,
Uh,
catcalling is actually another problem that a lot of women face frequently. Like you say, you do that all the time. So usually what
mhm.
happens is that you start with the catcalling and it quickly move into microaggression, and then you get to full-blown aggression. Okay? So if someone speak up against microaggression, or they tell you what you did to them or what you said to them hurt them, then you basically usually the perpetrator usually do exactly like you just did right now, and that's called gaslighting, which make the person
So,
question their version of reality. Just because you did not, your intention was never for you to hurt their feeling, but you did that. And that is something that we have. And this is where accountability comes. And you have to take responsibility for the way that you approach women. Just because the person is beautiful, you might say, hey, how you doing? They don't want to respond to you. That is okay. It is, does that not give you the right for you to continue to pursue it, and then for you to say, oh, maybe that's,
no, no,
that's
I
what they
never
like, or
said
anything
that.
like that.
I never said, like, if a woman goes and then like, ignores you, to go ahead and, like, pursue that. What I'm just trying to say, and there are 2 points, like, that I just want to make. They are quick. Patricia said, like, that when a man does not respect women, that like, this is all, like, you start initiating, like, like, raping mentality, and I have to disagree with you. If you don't respect women, that does not equate to, like, you being a rapist. And now,
I
Rose,
didn't
one
say
thing I
that.
can tell
I
you.
did
That's not
not
what she
say that
said.
Yeah, you said
equates to that.
respecting women. You
Let's
said
be clear.
respecting
He's taking
women,
notes.
like, you said that, like, it starts, like, with them, like, not respecting women, kids growing up, like, around, like, parents, like, men
Yep.
that don't respect women. So you said that
Yes.
verbatim. So now
I
I can
yes,
tell
I
you
did.
that does not
Go ahead.
equate to, that does not equate to rape. That does not
But
equate to,
let's
like,
be clear.
you, like,
I
becoming
didn't
or
say it
growing up
like
to be a
that. That's not
rapist.
what I meant.
So let's
That's not what
we
she
have
meant.
to
But I
get
Let me
to the
think,
next
clarify
question,
but
that.
I
guys,
think it's
before we take
something
a
that
break.
you said. Remember in the beginning when you were talking, depending on how the person touched the person, if they were at a club or at a bar. Remember the word that you
Hmm.
use. So if a child grew up
Touch.
like that, where they have no respect, that's the word that you will actually use for you to label that person. Now you become a
Okay.
jerk.
Um, if
So
you
can I
if you say
clarify what I said?
something.
Because that's an important
Hmm.
statement.
Go
Hmm.
ahead, Patricia.
So when we were talking about how you were saying that you do believe that these it's common sense for men in the Western world that they know not to rape. We have laws. You were saying all of these things, and my point in saying that
Uh-huh.
for boy living in that environment is that it's not always a direct thing where they say, okay, I'm going to do that because I see that. I'm saying that the behaviors that parents might have toward women might create a mentality in a boy who is growing up thinking that women are inferior to them. I'm not saying that if they don't respect women that they're going to rape women, but seeing women as inferior, seeing women as toys, seeing women as like a thing that you can switch however you want is a start in a mentality of a rapist. But that does not mean every man who disrespect women, go they grow up to be rapists, or they become rapists. That's not the case. There are a lot of arrogant
T-
men. They're not rapists. But I'm saying every single rapist is disrespectful toward women. That was the point.
yes.
Okay.
And that, like,
Let's hear
thank
from
you for
Kate, guys,
clarifying.
before Carl, let's hear from Kate before we go to the next question, because we have to keep moving, guys. Go ahead, Kate.
I think it is muted.
I think Kate is muted.
Kate, you are muted.
To
Can
view,
you hear
sorry,
us?
I was saying that I
All right,
agree
all
with
right.
what Patricia and Rose were saying about how it starts with little things. Like it starts with such as, like, let's say you have a son, he's in, I don't know, kindergarten, elementary school, and it's just like, he comes home and he says this, that, and the third about a little girl at school, and it's like, either you nip that in the bud there and you tell him, like, hey, it's not okay to talk about little girls, like, other girls like that, or but it also is how, like, the dads, um I guess, what's the word, like, lead by example in their house. Like, little kids are like sponges, so if they see their dad doing something whether it's rape or just anything, like, that's like domestic violence is kind of similar. Kids that grow up seeing stuff, they get in their relationships later and they think, okay, well, this is okay because this is something that I've seen and this is something that I've grown up with. And, nobody ever told me otherwise. So it's kind of like, it starts with little things like catcalling, just the way you speak to women, the way you address women, the way you, it is definitely a respect thing. Like, as much as you say rape does not mean you're disrespectful, I definitely disagree because it starts with disrespect. That's where it stems from. I mean, it's not just like, hey, no means no. It's not even just consent because, again, there's harassment, there's sexual assault, there's different aspects to it, as well as like molestation. Like, there's different routes
Kate, Kate, I have a question. Do you believe, Ted? I just want to say one thing. Do you just?
Yeah, that's a good. I have to go to the next question, guys. So let's save the question. All right, Carl. So, in the topic of consent, guys, right? So there are two things that that I look online in some online forums. So there are two things that caught my attention, right? So one of them was the issue of some people were saying that marital rape is not justified because a husband cannot rape his wife, right? And vice versa. So I want to hear you guys' opinion on that when it comes to consent, because their argument was well, they're married, so the wife can't say no, right? So that was one thing I saw online. The other thing I saw in another forum was along the same lines of consent. So some women, this one falls more in line with fantasies, right? So some women have expressed the desire that, they would like for their crush to just grab them and just kiss them and start making out with them, right? Without even addressing them or asking for consent. So, don't you guys think that this would lead to, the woman later on claiming that, hey, I was raped or something like that? Right? What do you guys think about those two issues? I want to hear from my ladies. Let me be specific. And then, Carl, if you have an element of answer, I want to hear from you too as well. Go ahead, Patricia.
I can start. So in terms of marital rape, I'm gonna go into the Bible and then out of the Bible. So the Bible does state clearly that your body, once you're married, your body is to your husband and your husband's body is to you. But the Bible also says to treat your wife or your partner. Says specifically to husband, treat your wife as Jesus Christ treat the church. So I think in Jesus's relationship with the church, basically we have free will because we have disobeyed God in any type of way, even though in some instance we do get punished, but in some instance we are dealing with the own consequences. Jesus doesn't force us to do anything. Jesus doesn't tell the church, you know what, I want you to have service tonight, and if you don't have service tonight, then I'm killing everybody at the church. In our graceful, I guess, in our period right now with Jesus having died on the cross for us, this is the type of relationship that we have now, and this is the type of relationship that should be in marriage too. So even though your body is to your husband, but your husband loving you as Jesus loved the church is not going to force you or hurt you to do things that you do not like. So of course, marital rape does exist, but there is more room to have a conversation because this is someone that you are married to. There is more room to have a negotiation. This is your wife. You don't have to, to use force and violence to get somewhere. This is someone that you're married to. So there is more room for negotiation in there. And the other question that you were talking about, how people grabbing people, if that is not going to lead to rape. First of all, they shouldn't be grabbing people, and of course that happens a lot in the club scene. I don't frequent those, but where people are just on top of each other and then you grabbing other people. But the
Mm-hmm.
line is when the person says stop, or when the person show you that they're uncomfortable. That's the line.
Yeah.
um and if the person is afraid of you, that's also a line. So I might not tell you no, but if I'm afraid of you, I can't say no
Mm.
to you because I'm afraid of what you might do to me. So you don't have my
Mm.
consent. So this is the line of grabbing and touching people.
Very interesting. Very interesting. What do you think about that, Kate?
About like marital rape. I definitely think a lot more people, like if someone were to come and say, "Hey, my spouse, raped me," a lot more people are gonna, unfortunately, if they were to hear that, they would probably brush it off because I definitely have heard instances where it's like, well, they can't rape you, that's your wife, that's your husband. Like,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people think that, um, or treat marriage as like what's what I'm looking for, like erasing consent in a sense, that like
Mm.
consent doesn't still apply because you're married, but it does. Like it very much so
Mm-hmm.
applies because let's say I don't know, your wife might just not be feeling it that night or whatever. I guess another thing to also I guess keep in mind is one form of rape is also coercion, like trying to convince someone, pressure someone in a sense to
Mm-hmm.
do some type of sexual act even if they don't want to. So I mean that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole different other road that we can go down as well.
Okay. What do you think, Rose?
Um, just like the other ladies have stated, is that intimate partner violence definitely does exist, and of course, like kids say, if you go ahead and tell someone that okay, your husband forced himself into you, of course, most of the time they will basically brush that. But I would say that as far as like when it comes down to sex, between like a husband and wife, it's and even if it's just for people who are not husband and wife, it's supposed to be pleasure. you know we have sex first.
Mm-hmm.
God gave it to us for pleasure, and then of course for procreation. So if in order for me to be intimate with my partner and they have to force it, then that's definitely going to make me look into, okay, what is the state of our relationship?
Mm.
And most of the time when the spouse, whether if it's male or female, that actually involve in forcing them to have sexual intercourse with them, there's usually domestic violence is usually go hand to hand with that. So the person will get
Mm-hmm.
to a point, they'll be like, you know what, if I don't do this, I already know that you're going to hate me, or you're going to
Mm.
emotionally verbalize me. So I'm just going to
Mm-hmm.
kind of do that. But I feel like once you get into that point in your marriage, there's definitely
Mm-hmm.
something that is wrong there, because you do not have that
Yeah.
intimacy that you're supposed to have, for your partner, and that is someone that you're supposed to be becoming one. So why will you treat them that way when, if your mother or your sister or any other family member will tell you that someone is treating them that way, you wouldn't appreciate it. And it's the same thing with Patricia. So we are supposed to be, husbands supposed to love their spouse just as Christ loved the church. So why would you
Mm-hmm.
manipulate or even belittle and degrading someone to that level, but at the same time you are saying that you love them?
Mm. Mm. Very good point. Very good questions, guys.
And
So
as far
Carl,
as
I
like
don't know. Do you
with
have any?
the
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, it's okay, it's
Continue, Rose,
really
please.
short. And as far as like with the other part, for people who have fetishes or like fantasies, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard on the internet they usually have a safe word. So again, it will have to be communication. If that is something that you want to participate in, you definitely need to
Mm-hmm.
communicate with that person that you want to have that fantasy or that fetish with. If that's I will digress on that. I will definitely say health, a boundary definitely needs to be in place. And if it's a safe
Yeah.
word, if I said this word, that's meant for you to stop. And at the same time, both parties involved need to take accountability as well as consequences for their action if anything, actually end up going wrong in whatever situation that they agree on.
Um, well, I want to invite the
Um,
audience
Ted,
to start preparing their
I got a
I
questions.
call.
wanted to make a point. I wanted to
Yeah,
make a
give me
point.
1 second, Carl. I'm gonna get to you. I'm gonna get to you, Carl. I just want to invite the audience. We're gonna be taking a break in a little bit. The numbers should be showing up on the screen in a few. You guys can start calling in, right? If you have any questions or if you want to share your opinions on tonight's topic. Go ahead, Carl.
So, on the topic of marriage, I want to say something. You married one, so that means like you sexually like attracted to them, and there is a level of like sexual pleasure that should be satisfied. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that marital rape is a thing. That is something that can happen. However, one thing
Mm-hmm.
like that I think we forget to address sometimes is the fact that sometimes you do meet a girl and then like sexually compatible and everything is great, and then you get married, and then like sometimes that sexuality decreases. Now, in that sense, as a man, I don't believe you should go ahead and like force anyone to go ahead and have sex with you. In that case, what I do think you
Mm-hmm.
should do is do exactly what the Bible says, for instance, Abraham, just go ahead and get another woman. That's simple, and you don't have that problem anymore. She doesn't want to give it to you at home, go find it elsewhere. That's simple,
That's
and
adultery.
that's the way it is. It isn't
That's
adultery. Abraham had many wives. Abraham had many women, and there's like many people in the Bible that had like many women around them. That is not adultery. Now, I do believe if you're not getting it at home, that is something that is very important to like a marriage. Sex is a very important thing to a marriage. So I do believe if you're not getting it at home, do not fret, like, do not pressure her, do not even look at her. Just go elsewhere and find it. That's my point. That's why I stand on it. Now, the second thing like was about the fetishes. I've been around.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that like there are like things out there. And one thing I can say about that, and it's brief. If it is something that someone else is into, like your partner is into, as long as it is something that is well communicated, that is something that is that is talked about. A lot of like people love to be choked. A lot of people love to be like called names. A lot of people love to be like treated like a certain way in the bedroom. Now, if it is like if there's a conversation that was had about like the way that we both conduct ourselves sexually in the bedroom, then I do believe like everything's up for game, as long as like Rose mentioned, there's safe words, and there's like no one feels like that they are being taken advantage of or being abused. I do think like that is perfectly normal. But when it comes to marriage, I do believe like that is important in a marriage. That sex is very important, and I do believe like that is something that can literally make a marriage go in decline if it doesn't happen. Now, if you're not getting it, do not go ahead and force a woman to do anything that they want to do. As a man, you shouldn't go ahead and do that. You should protect women. What I suggest is go outside and find it and problem solve.
How about talking to the wife and ask what's going on and try to solve the
Does
problem,
no
the
talk.
intimacy
Does
issue?
no talk. Does no
Oh,
talk.
okay.
If like if you go like if I met you and everything was sexually fine, everything was amazing, and then we get married, now there's nothing, the sexual like attention I'm not getting, I will go and find it elsewhere. I'm not gonna go ahead and stay in something
All
that I
right. All
didn't
right.
sign
All
up
I
right.
for.
have
That's a breach of
I have
contract.
some I have something to say.
We have to
Okay,
take a break,
I
guys.
un-
We,
A marriage
sure.
is a
Yes,
It
contract.
will
A
be short.
marriage is
It'll
a
be
contract.
short.
And
It'll be
that
short.
we have
contract
to
and
take a
that
break, guys.
I
contract,
just have
sex is
one. I
involved.
just have one. Look, I have one question for you, Carl. I do understand that's your stand, and look, That's you, and that's okay. But on that same subject, what if I'm not even gonna bring medical issue into this matter? So what happened if it's you that is not satisfying your wife? Can she
She has the right
also
to
go
go do
outside?
something. If you
Okay,
you mentioned
that
medical
was it.
issues. Now, medical issues, that's very different. Like, if she has a medical issue, there's like, women that have UTIs, there are women like, that have like, issues that, what, like, they can't be sexual active. So like, yeah, that is something you need to respect. And I don't think you should be a jackass and then like, go ahead and like, find something elsewhere. But if everything is fine, everything is like, perfect. There's nothing like, that like, shifted from like, when like, you guys were dating until like, when you guys get married. Go outside and find another woman and then do it. As a matter of fact, find many other women. Like, there are plenty outside, and like, I can tell you, like, there are many fish in the sea. Like, and they would all be
So
able to go ahead and do what she
why
doesn't want to do.
why get married to begin with? You could definitely live
I
a
did
single
get
life and
married.
get
I
as
did get
many
married. I
women
did
as
get
you.
married. I did get married. I did get married to someone sexually um like compatible with someone like that I sexually like felt attracted to. Now, if she doesn't want to fill like her part of the contract, I am allowed to go ahead and like do whatever satisfies me, and I do believe it stands there.
Okay, we need
I
a
would like to know
break.
what
All
do
right,
you
guys.
base
We're
your
gonna have to
your
take a break, guys.
foundation on?
Unfortunately, because we have to give the audience a chance to ask questions. I know a lot of people. I see people dying in the comment sections, man. I know. I can't even finish. This is crazy. All right, y'all. So we're gonna take a break, and we'll be right back.
An army of youth from all walks of life, dedicated and devoted to making a difference in the community. We strive to be the change that we want to see, putting our God-given talents to good use while relying on Him for guidance and strength. We do not reject tradition. We simply seek improvement. By turning both strengths and flaws into assets for the Lord. We are heavily armed with mass construction weapons, those of faith, hope, love, and prayer. And we are looking to impact every single individual we encounter. We are PDF Ministry, proactive and devoted faith ministry.
All right. We're back, guys. And like I said earlier, now is the time for the audience to either call in to ask their questions or give their opinion, or I'm going to be pulling questions from the comment sections on YouTube and Facebook, right? So if you guys have a question for any of our panelists, please, you can ask those questions right now, right? And then we're going to start taking those questions. I believe you should see the number on the screen. You can call that number and voice your opinions. Before we get to this, oh, well, we actually have a question. Someone asked on Facebook, if a married man loses his job, should his woman go find another man?
No.
No.
No, that's honestly real materialistic. Like, why are you married to him then? If his job is what you're depending on, to be happy. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that could be worked around. He can always find another job. That's not. I would not leave somebody because they lost a job.
Okay.
But that's just me.
What do you
Um,
think, Patricia?
I oh, sorry.
Patricia, what do you think?
No. You shouldn't, things happen, cutbacks and all kind of situation. If anything, I think you should pray and then help them search and support them. If it's a lack of
Mm-hmm.
motivation or anything else, I don't think you should leave them in. No.
Okay. Oh, what do you think about that, Carl?
Well, I have to ask a question. How many jobs, has he lost in the past? That's
Mm-hmm.
a very important question. And the second, that I can go ahead and tell you, if and I've said it in previous shows, that drop mic, I said, has played as aired. Um, if a woman marries you for financial gains, quoting future Hendrix, she belongs to the streets. That's where she belongs. She is not a good woman. She is never she's not in your interest. This is where I
Mm.
stand. But I do think when you say loses his job, I feel like there should be a little more clarification because is he drinking and then every single job he has and he loses them? Is he being irresponsible every single time and he loses his job? So I do believe this is there's a nuance there. However, if it's just it's a bad time, there's economy is not doing well and the poor man loses his job and then you leave. Well, I'm sorry, respectfully, but you're a whore.
Mm. Okay. And I believe we have a caller on the line, so let's put them through. Hello.
Oh, yes. I have a question for Carl. Okay, let's say your
Mm-hmm.
wife says no to not have any sexual interaction with you. Are you just gonna
Mm-hmm.
leave and go get it from someone else? But mind you, you're in a
Well,
relationship, like you're married to her. Or are you just gonna force yourself on her because she said no?
No, and as I've mentioned
That's all.
before, I don't believe you should go ahead and pressure any woman into doing anything that they do not wish to do, to go ahead and do, willingly. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you are married to a woman and there are no medical reasons why coitus shouldn't happen, there isn't she isn't mad at you, you didn't do anything wrong, but you keep getting denied. What I'm gonna go ahead and suggest is that you go out there and then you find another woman or you find other women that will go ahead and satisfy that sexual desire, because whatever she doesn't want to do, plenty other women out there will do it, and I can guarantee you of that.
So, I want to thank the caller, but I do have a follow-up question for you about that, though, Carl. So let's say you and your significant other are having an argument, right? So let's say you made her
Hmm.
mad, right?
Hmm.
You caused her to be angry, or let's
Hmm.
say she's sick, right?
Hmm.
So she's not feeling so well,
Hmm.
and you're in the mood, but she says, "Hey, babe,
Hmm.
tonight's not the time."
Hmm.
So will you still go out and find somebody else?
Okay, so you said angry and then you said sick. So if you are angry, I don't believe you're gonna have any pleasure in doing any sexual related things. However,
Mm-hmm,
if
mm-hmm.
she's sick on Monday, she's sick on Tuesday, she's sick on Wednesday, she's sick on Thursday, I believe by Friday go outside and then have sex as with many women as you can.
But you do know that there are certain conditions that can last more than a week, though.
Well, then that's what I'm saying. So if it's something that if she is sick, if she say, "Oh, I have a headache on Monday," I have a headache on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I have a headache on Wednesday. I would suggest on Wednesday that you go and you make an appointment to the doctors and to get that sorted out. Because like, by next Wednesday, I am not going to take it. That's just personal. I respect myself, and I do believe like, if I'm married to you, that is part of the contract. Sex is part of the contract. And if I'm not getting it, then why am I in that marriage? Like I might as well just go out there and then like, do whatever I want with whoever I want. I mean, that only makes sense. That's practical to me. That's sound thinking to me. But I do understand that it might be extreme to others, but I do believe that if you're not getting whatever you signed up for, I believe that is a breach of contract. And if a contract is breached, then there's nothing like withstanding it. You can go ahead and do whatever you please.
All right, thank you, Carl. I believe we have another caller on the line. Oh, we have 2 calls. So let's go ahead and put the first one through. Oh, we're not ready yet. So I do have a question though, guys. So I guess we can address that in a little bit. But so it's a current case that's ongoing, right? So I know many of you guys have seen the documentary on Netflix about Jeffrey Epstein and everything that was going on. And just recently, I guess this week, they arrested his partner or his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. So my question is, where do we draw the line between a victim and an accomplice? Because in the documentary, they were showing how some of the young ladies that were brought over to his mansion, right? They knew that what he was doing was wrong. They didn't want to have anything to do with it, right? They didn't want to sleep with him or anything like that. But he offered them money to go get other girls. They took the money and brought other girls. And now here we are a few years later. They're saying that they were victims, right? So where do we draw the line between victims and accomplices? I want to hear from you guys quickly before we take our calls. I'll start with you, Rose, Patricia, and then Carl.
Based on those information, and I think this is where basically the controversial part of Me Too movement come about. Is people that have agreed to it previously, and then years later, now that they are saying that it was harassment or they were raped and all that. So as far as like with I would say like his partner, I truly believe that she deserved the same sentence that he received.
Okay.
And when all of these things are like unfolded, this is where that people who actually had experienced that type of trauma, this is where it actually hindered them from coming out and say anything, because you do have some that actually does use it for their own personal gain.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I will say that I hope, and of course, I know that we are human. It's in our nature for us to actually start judging people. But I will always say that for, those who are, that have experienced it, to definitely come out and find the courage on either like your close friends or your family and still speak out against it. Because if we do not do that, the type of people that are using the platform for their own personal gain, it definitely going to allow it to continue to happen. And every time someone come forward, it's going to be the same thing. Oh, so-and-so said the same thing, but, a few years later, nothing happened. So as far as for you, especially if you do not have any evidence, they're just going to sweep it under the rug.
Okay. Before I go to you, Patricia, I think we have another caller on the line. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. So I wanted to add to something that was said earlier when it comes to educating a woman about what to do if they're if they're facing rape. A lot of time people don't know that they can go to the ER and collect evidence, but that's one thing that we have to educate our friends or family, our sisters or daughters about, that if you've been raped or if one of your friends raped, bring the person immediately to the ER, because there is a certain time period where they can find evidence on the person's body, and that evidence they can use it to and legally, but do not force the person to talk about it. Earlier, Paul was talking about starting the healing process early, and I was I partially agreed with what he said, because you have to go, to an ER, or you don't have, even if you can't tell anybody, just run there and just try to explain to the nurses that something happened to you and you needed help. You don't have to tell them how it happened. They should be able to help you out and collect the evidence as early as possible, so you can have proof that this happened to me and I'm not just making up stories. So if anybody comes and tries to use your word against you, you have concrete evidence that this happened to me. But you don't have to start talking about it right away, because a lot of time when people start to talk about the trauma too early, it can hurt their mind more than if they waited later when they're ready to talk about it. But I believe that it's really important to educate the people around us, and especially the female, to know that either if you're raped or you have a friend that's been raped, run to the ER with them as soon as possible, because even if it's been, let's say, a week, they might be able to find other evidence other than DNA that can help them, that they can use as evidence in legal trial against the person that raped the person, instead of just not saying anything and just dwelling on your pain and just hiding away from the world. And the ER usually, especially in the US, is some place you can go without a person. You can run there, and as long as you explain to them, they should not send you away. They should be able to help you out with that. Just wanted to point that out, because it's really important to know what to do. Because a lot of people will go to the situation and they don't want to tell somebody, but they don't know who to trust or who to talk to, and they don't know the right steps to do. But I think that's something everybody should know. You can go to the hospital and you can get help there. That's your first step, is to not have anybody that you can trust, that you can talk to. The hospital should be able to help you out with that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling. And I believe we have another caller on the line, guys. Let's put them through. Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, am I on the line?
Yes, you're live. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you. This conversation has been great, and thank you guys for all the panelists. My question is specifically for Mr. Carl, and it's regarding the statements that he's made. My question is, who hurt you this bad in regards to women in general? What is your conception, your viewpoint of women in general? Your viewpoint of women, who hurt you this bad to have that type of, that strong emotion and viewpoint of women in general?
Well, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the question. I want to advise our audience Not to
No,
really,
I don't take
you know,
offense.
I don't think
I
anyone
don't
hurt
take
Carl,
offense to that. No.
you know, but this is a
No, no,
space
no, 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 Ted. Let me
for a debate.
address it. Let me.
So yeah, go ahead.
I want to address
Go
it.
ahead, Carl.
You know, I thank you very much for the question. It was very well thought out. And I appreciate you, like, asking directly. I have to let you know that there is nothing wrong about being a man. And I think, like, nowadays that is something that is very undervalued. And if, like, a man acts as a man, they people have the tendency to believe that, like, that something must, like, be going on that's wrong within them. I can tell you that, like, I've done a lot of hurting, and people have hurt me plenty, but I don't think, like, I hold into, like, to the, things that are, like, in my past, or, like, I don't hold to grudges. I believe, like, it makes you heavy. You don't go ahead and, like, fulfill, like, your full potential. But what I can tell you is my statement was based on a man. And as a man, you have to respect yourself. And part of respecting yourself is, if you have a contract and the contract is breached, you have full rights to go ahead and, do whatever you please. And that has nothing to do with being hurt. I'm a happy, I love women. I do believe, like, that's God's best creature, like, on earth. I really love women, but, like, I'm not hurt. Like, au contraire. I'm far away from being hurt.
All right, thank you guys. I believe we have a question on someone asked a question on Facebook. Said, how can you bring someone to the ER to get tested if they refuse? The person doesn't want their business out there in the public. What then? So I want my ladies to answer that question for me.
So, well, go ahead, Kate.
I was just gonna say, I guess that's a really, I feel like that would be something that, I mean, really, like, just talk to them about it and just be like, hey, look, or maybe honestly, not necessarily bringing them, but maybe going with them and also getting tested yourself. That might make things a little more, less, I guess, awkward, and less on the, oh, my business is out there side, because at that point it's not only their business that would be out there, and that's because that's not really what it is. But I feel like the best way to go about that is, like, maybe go with them or something. Maybe y'all both go get tested. I know a lot of people do that.
Okay, thank you. And before we go to the other ladies, we have another caller on the line. So we'll take one more call, guys, and we'll have to end the show because we're out of time. So let's take this call. Hello.
Hey, Fed. Yeah. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Max.
Hey, man. I just want to call in about what just happened. For everybody to look at the bigger picture. Victim shaming happens because people will look at somebody who's been attacked for whatever reason or been hurt, and will shame that person or publicly speak against that person. If we want to end the culture of victims not being able to speak up, let's all learn to respect anyone that you could see has been hurt. Don't attack that person. Don't call them out. Don't call them names. Pray for them. Help them. Don't publicly shame them or bring them up, but find a way to help them in a way that they will be, instead of putting up a wall, they'll be more likely to say, you know what? Because oftentimes people don't realize how they've been hurt sometimes. They block it out. You know what I'm saying? So if we want to help even the sisters and the women who are raped, the kids that are raped and molested and all these things, let's learn to stop victim shaming everybody. Recognize when someone's hurt and treat them with more care instead of attacking them. I just have to say that point.
All right, thank you, Max.
All right, thanks.
So let's see if we have any questions on here. So I guess we'll go back to the initial question I asked you guys before we wrap up. The question was, where do we draw the line between victims and accomplices? Right? Because some of the ladies, I know a lot of people have mentioned that, they were young girls. They've been manipulated and brainwashed by Jeffrey Epstein, right? But some of those girls, they went ahead, they took money from him and brought other girls, right? So do we consider them as victims or are they accomplices? So I want to hear from you guys. Let's say 30 seconds, everyone, and then we'll wrap up the episode for tonight. I'll start with you, Kate.
So I definitely would think I would still classify, especially after watching the documentary, I would still classify them as victims because despite them being like maybe even like slightly older than the other girls, they didn't know. I mean, they actually know that's incorrect. Because after watching the documentary, the girls did know what they were bringing the other girls or recruiting in a sense. They knew what they were bringing them into. Because if you watch the documentary, one of them talked about how one of her friends had told her about it. And she's like, look, all you need to do is massage this dude, massage this old guy. And it was something as simple as that. So I definitely would probably still qualify them as victims because they didn't really know. I mean, they knew it was wrong, but it was also like in their situations, again, watching it, these girls were in not the best situations to begin with. So they saw that as, okay, this is my way out. I didn't see it really as, I don't think they expected him to go as far as he did with some of the other girls. So,
Okay.
I think it's a hard line to draw, definitely, though.
Definitely. I want to hear from you, Patricia.
I didn't watch the documentary, so I want to say that before I give my reason. But I do believe that if before you walk into the situation, someone, I'm just saying not personally or generally, someone walks to me and say that, okay, this is the money, and all you have to do and go in and give this guy a massage. This is like slightly prostitution. So I do not believe if you willingly walk into a situation like that, you are a victim. You can become a victim after walking into it because you don't know what you're walking into. Exactly, if violence happened, of course, now you were a victim. But if someone gives you money and tell you the whole situation, I have to go and massage a guy, that's no. Because you are giving your consent by accepting that money and walking into the situation. And I'm not saying that it's on age, because if you're then you can be easily manipulated. But if you're a young woman and they're telling you, go massage this guy and this is the money, then you accepted it.
Okay. I heard from you, Carl, and then Rose.
Well, my stand on this is, there's a conversation to be had there, and is that prostitution should be legal. I believe, that is something that should be happening. I believe, this is the 21st century, and I believe, prostitution should be legal. Now, if you are do I consider those people as victims? No, they know exactly what they were doing. They got paid for it. They are simply whores, that got paid to do a job. Now, there's nothing more to that. There's nothing less to it. Now, the victims, yes, Patricia, they were whores. Now, for the
I don't suggest that you keep repeating that.
The accomplice part. The accomplice part, of it is they should receive the same penalty Jeffrey Epstein. The reason why, that's because they literally helped them get to wherever he wanted to go. So now if they weren't paid and they didn't know what was going on, they were brought to him, then yeah, I do believe there were malfeasance in this. But if they know what was going on and they were paid and they went there for services, I do believe know, that's just supply and demand, you know. You have some vagina, I have like, you know, a need, I pay you money and you satisfy that need. And that's to me perfectly normal.
Can we just add, so the
That's it
girls
from you,
were
Rose.
underage. The girls were underage. I
Oh,
just
if they
wanted
were
to add.
underage,
Yeah, they were like
18
13.
plus.
Yeah,
No,
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 they were
if you're
like
18 years
13,
old,
14.
no, no,
Yeah, they were like 13.
if you are 18, if you are 18, you know, age
No,
of
they were
consent.
not
So if
18.
no, if you are 18, like, you know, that is totally normal. But if you are underage, no, that is pedophilia, something that should be punished by, like, you know, by the law, and that is a severe, like, you know, penalty. But if they are
Yeah.
of age and, like, you know, they were paid, like, you know, they knew what they were walking into, that is like a street worker. That is not, like, you know, someone that, like, you know, that is it does not fit the victim category for me.
All right, thank you, Colin. Go to you, Rose.
Um, I think what I would say is that when it comes down to it, it's about power and control. And there's one specific word that you say is that they were brainwashed, which means that
Yes.
maybe we're vulnerable. We don't know their social, social economic, class that those girls are from. So the fact that power and control can take many forms, then I feel like that's kind of how they ended up being victim of that. But I would basically just with the whole movement topic, we basically have to teach our sons, daughters to have, boundaries for themselves, accountability, and the same thing, with consequences. And at the end of the day, I feel like, with the word again, if we respect our peers and most importantly ourselves, then when we see something, whether if it's like starting as microaggression for it to even get to full grown aggression, we basically just need to speak up and say something about it. Because just going back and forth, everyone is going to have a different opinion, and mean that it's okay, and we're basically going to have to agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, we are all human, and our our life basically, it's in the line. When someone has to deal with PTSD, and with it, anxiety, depression, that definitely take a toll. It's like a whole, like, holistic approach into that person as a whole human being. And whether, people are using, sexual harassment as a personal gain or not, I just want us to, just look at the big picture, the victim, and the fact that they need our support, they need our courage, and whatever journey, or whenever they decided to start that journey and they agreed to take that first step, all they need us to do is just the support. And it doesn't take, so it's not a hard thing to support someone. It's basically just let them know, hey, I am here for you. I acknowledge the experience that you went through, and I'm just here for you, and that's about it.
Well, I want to thank you guys for your time. I want to thank you for being on the panel tonight. I want to thank our audience for tuning in. I want to thank you guys for sharing your opinions, right? Your very strong opinions in the comment sections. I want to remind you guys that, this is a platform where we ask our panelists to be as authentic and genuine as possible. We ask them to address both and all sides of every issue, right? So I'm imploring you guys, if you do meet Carl in Boston, say hi to him, right? He's a very nice guy. We went to school together. He's my friend. And I want to thank all of our callers, all of the people who ask questions in the comment sections. And I want to remind you guys that Drop Mic airs every Friday at 8 o'clock, Central Time though. So we'll see you guys next Friday. Once again, my name is Ted, and you are watching Drop Mic. Have a good night.